Hello and welcome to Culturally Illiterate. Welcome back to us. This is the first time we've recorded in some bit. Since the last time we recorded, me and Sean have both relocated our persons. This is a podcast where four friends like to overthink comic book movies together. I'm one of your hosts, Jake. I am no longer in the same room as any of my co-hosts, but they're still here with me.
Big sad.
I'm Jason. Now you're interrupting me.
I can't believe you
did
this.
It won't pick up the audio separate.
I'm Jason, and I saw Kid Cudi in his hometown of Cleveland a couple weeks ago. That's my fun fact.
Hello, I am Matt, and my fun fact is that in this movie, it features a cameo from the god, the legend, Coolio, who I just recently has passed, and now I must fall asleep to Gangster's Paradise in order to honor his legend.
All right then.
Rest in peace.
Rip. All right, and I am Sean. My fun fact of today, I actually have a fun fact this time. So my fun fact is that I learned what the word toyetic means from this movie. The word toyetic is, and let me bring it up to make sure I get it correct, a term referring to the suitability of media for merchandising, which I'm also I have two tabs open up. One is for toyetic, and the other one is for the homosexuality in Batman.
Well, that's fitting. You guys want to rapid fire some recs real quick? It's been a minute, but I got some that I can spit out.
I got some
recs.
Let
you go first.
I got some recs.
I
got
one.
A couple. First and foremost, as I mentioned Kid Cudi earlier, at the time of recording this just a couple days ago, his new Netflix event and album just released called Intergalactic. It's very good. I highly recommend it. Even if you're not a huge Cudi fan, I think I was really impressed by it. It could have been very easy to just kind of make it a promotional kind of thing for his album, but I think it shows that he put a lot of care into it. The animation style is really interesting, so I really recommend that. And the album also is very good and ties in very, very well with the story of the movie. Also, there's another song a music thing that I want to recommend. It's a song. Let me pull up the title of it because I forget. It's called Negatives by Heart-Shaped Lakes featuring Jordan Black of a band called Like Pacific. It's just a good punk kind of song that I wanted to rec.
Wait, I wanted to add, I haven't seen Intergalactic on Netflix yet. Have you, Jason?
Yeah, I watched it last night.
Was it good?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
It seems like
it
it's
was
really
very good. It has a great cast. I mean, Cudi plays the lead role himself, but then there's also Timothée Chalamet voices someone in it, Ty Dolla $ign, Macaulay Culkin has a bit part in it. There's a bunch of really talented people attached to it.
I will save that one for myself.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It was definitely very enjoyable.
Matt, what about you guys?
So, I have a couple recommendations. So, to my fellow gamers out there, I must say that if you enjoy shooters, you should probably pick up Splatoon 3. It is an excellent third-person shooter. You'll greatly enjoy it. In fact, it is a game where you don't even need to aim to contribute, because the game's premise of just painting your base is the entire point. So you don't even get kills. So you could be a total scrub and you still contribute. Also, another thing is that Bayonetta 3 is coming out. And if you have ever played or were interested in one of those hack and slashes, Devil May Cry, or just like Devil May Cry, you should play the Bayonetta series, who's made by the same people behind the original Devil May Cry. You just beat up on a bunch of angels and occasionally demons, and if you buy Bayonetta 2 on the Switch, you'll get Bayonetta 1 free. And if you don't have access to a Switch, you could just buy Bayonetta 1. You won't play You won't get to play 2 because that's a Switch exclusive, unfortunately. But it's still an excellent game, and you should play it.
I feel like Matt just really plugged for Nintendo.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounded like an ad read.
But I'm not
if you
surprised.
get Bayonetta 2 on the Switch, you get Bayonetta 1 for free.
For free.
No, honestly, the reason it doesn't sound like an ad read is because it's from Nintendo, and if anything, I think they're going to somehow try to take this podcast episode down just for us using their name in
My
conversation.
uncle is from Nintendo.
We can bleep
He'll
it
vouch
out.
For
We
us.
can just
What
bleep
about
it
you,
out.
Sean?
It'll be fine.
I don't know if I have a rec this time, but I was going to mention Splatoon 3, I guess. But Matt took that from me, so I'm gonna splat all over that. And let me see. Do I have anything else off the top of my head? I don't think so. I haven't really. I have an anti-recommendation for those of you who go to New York Comic-Con at all. Goddamn, I hate the people who run it so much.
At the time of recording this, and it's weird because the convention itself I've never had any issues with, but getting to it, like the ticket sales and the reservations and everything are a mess. But as of recording this, me and Sean are leaving for NYCC in a few days. So that's gonna be fun. Hopefully we'll have stories to bring back from that.
Oh, we'll definitely have stories, but like, oof, they are. I am just so shocked because we've had to do like they have this weird reservation system set up that Jake and I both know about. But it's like you reserve your spots in like certain like panels or big events and stuff that they have going on at the convention, and the past. They started it last year, but this year was their second year doing that, and every single time that they've tried, it's always crashed. And I'm so shocked that they don't have the server power to expect as many people as they do, or how their vendors don't know how many people are actually going. It's just really strange.
Yeah, they're clearly cutting corners.
That doesn't make a lot of sense because like they already sold the tickets. So you'd think they'd have a pretty good idea of what to expect.
Yeah, you'd think they would know that.
You would.
Still find. Never mind. I was gonna say I still find it funny for this past year. They when they tried it this time, they just dropped their vendor who was holding everything, like accountable for the reservation system, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, good. All right, yeah, I just wanted to get you guys before I started rapid firing some stuff because, like I said, it's been a while since we recorded. So I got, let me see, list of movies I've seen and enjoyed since the last time. Real quick, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, really funny satire on organized religion and like televangelists. Barbarian, raw as fuck horror movie. Finally watched Prey. It's great. Make more period piece Predator movies. God's Country, fantastic little simple drama thriller about just things escalating because people are assholes and won't just talk about stuff. Woman King I thought was a solid action flick. See How They've Run, solid murder mystery. What's her name? Saoirse Ronan? Is that how you say it?
Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan. Saoirse Ronan's fantastic in it. She makes the whole movie. Pearl, great horror movie. Liked it even more than X, actually, the more I sit on it. Bros, fantastic rom-com that unfortunately did not do well in the box office its opening weekend this weekend. So I recommend you guys, who I'm talking to freshly, go see it if you have the chance. And I recommend that if you're listening to this later, you catch it on VOD or wherever it's streaming. I want to also shout out Smile. Really, really good horror movie. Definitely recommend that. It will stick with you. It was one of the scariest movies I've seen in a while. And then I actually have one music rec. I want to give a rec to Told Ya, John Harvey's debut album. So I enjoyed that little bit of, I guess you'd call it pop punk. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I had.
Oof. I still need to see Smile, but I agree with those movie recommendations.
Yeah, the only ones that he listed that I've seen are Barbarian and Pearl, but those were both fantastic.
Yeah, I recommend the others if you have the chance.
For sure.
Obviously, this part's getting edited out, but what do you guys want to do? Because now Matt's gone again.
What?
Oh, you're not gone? Oh, you disappeared from your icon disappeared from my screen. I don't see it, so I thought you had to leave.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, technical error. I only see, before I saw your little LI, and now it's not there, so I was like, oh.
That's because I haven't been speaking at all.
Yeah, maybe that's why. I just thought it was weird, the icon. But anyway.
Matt just did a big yawn.
All right, well, let's unless you guys have stories you want to tell, let's just get right to it. So this episode, we're covering Batman and Robin, released June 20th, 1997, written by Akiva Goldsman, directed by Joel Schumacher, and shot by Steven Goldsplat. Stars George
Beautiful
Clooney as
movie.
Bruce Wayne slash Batman, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, Alicia Silverstone as Barbara Wilson slash Batgirl, Chris O'Donnell as Robin slash Dick Grayson, Michael Gough reprising his role as Alfred Pennyworth, and Jeep Swenson as Bane. But prior to watching the movie tonight, had you guys all seen it before? What's your prior experience and exposure to Batman and Robin? And I also want to add, what were your expectations going into this viewing, since this film is rather notorious?
I'll start. So I've seen it before. I remember seeing it as a child, and I remember it heavily sticking out in my mind for many reasons. But I never as a kid thought it was that bad, which I guess is part of the looking at it with child tinted glasses, I suppose, because I critically didn't have any idea of what to think about it, but now I love it.
Also,
I
kids
mean,
are all definitely the main target audience.
Oh yes, 100%. But going into it now and knowing what to expect, I feel like it has its issues, but it's still fantastic. To me, I loved going into it again because it's just such a funny, goofy movie, and it's really just Batman 66 on a budget.
Yeah, I've seen this movie probably more times than any other Batman movie. Just because, as a child, I loved it, and still to this day, I think it's just a blast, and I love going back to it because it's just so absurd and so stupidly fun.
Oh my god, the one-liners.
The one-liners, the whole movie, just full of great one-liners.
I don't care whether they're terrible one-liners or they're fantastic. They're all good.
I agree.
I have not seen this movie before. I have seen some clips here and there and see some videos talking about how terrible it is. So, of course, going into this, my expectations were as low as you can imagine. So, I'm not going to get into how I feel about it yet. We'll get into about that later, but it definitely wasn't as bad as I was expecting.
I similarly watched this for the first time as a kid. It actually aired on the Cartoon Network when I was pretty little. And at the time, I didn't really have a concept of things, so I didn't know. I grew up, I think I talked about this back in the Batman 66 episode, but I grew up watching that show with my mom when I was before I was in elementary school age. So the first time I saw this, and that was my main exposure to Batman to that point, because I grew up reading comics, but I was growing up reading my dad's old Marvel comics. So my main exposure to Batman was Batman 66, and I think at that point I'm sure I'd seen some of the animated series and Batman Beyond and whatnot. But I loved that 66 show, and I remember watching this on Cartoon Network, and I didn't really know that it was from the 90s. I didn't know any of that, and I didn't know its rep, and I just watched it and thought it was a really fun time. So maybe there's some nostalgia attached, but it's a movie that I've watched since then and enjoyed, so I was looking forward to getting to watch it and talk about it with you guys. I guess we'll go right into the plot, and it starts off Batman and his partner Robin encounter a new foe, Mr. Freeze, who's left a string of diamond robberies in his wake. During a confrontation in the Natural History Museum, Freeze steals a bigger diamond and flees, freezing Robin and leaving Batman unable to pursue him. Later, Batman and Robin learn that Freeze was originally Dr. Victor Freeze, a scientist working to develop a cure for McGregor syndrome, hoping to heal his terminally ill wife Nora. After a lab accident, Freeze was rendered unable to live at average temperatures and forced to wear a cryogenic suit powered by diamonds and survival. So, there's a lot, while that's a pretty brief paragraph, there's a lot that happens right off the bat, especially visually and tonally. So before continuing with the plot, I kind of want to discuss what your first impressions were, either the first time you saw this movie or this time seeing it, because it really hits you right in the face kind of right away.
So I guess I should go first because I'm probably the only one who has not seen this movie previously. So I didn't really have any expectations going into this, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. And it just goes ape shit right off the bat. Holy fucking shit. Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this gigantic suit, spewing out ice puns, like it's a necessity to his life. And then all of his henchmen are just evil hockey players. And oh my god, he has to steal diamonds for his suits and stuff like that. And
I think to add on to that, Matt, I like that I love the gangs. The gangs in these movies are fantastic.
I can
especially this one.
Appreciate a goofy gang, but it's for me. Okay, I go. Oh my god, I only could tolerate so much before it's just too much. Like the henchmen being evil hockey players and just skating around and playing hockey with the diamond is just it seems cool, but like in execution wise, it's just not that fun for me. And then
to me that's
enjoy.
Fun. It was so goofy.
It was so goofy. It was just too goofy for me. And then like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like holy shit! Every single breath he takes, a pun comes out, and I got so sick of it, but we'll get to that later on. It's just he kept spewing them, and then he just keeps making those stereotypical Arnold Schwarzenegger grunts, which justifies every single stereotypical Arnold Schwarzenegger impressionist out there. Like he keeps making like noises.
Oh my god. I feel like, Matt, we watched the different movies because every time he says one of his one-liners, I feel like it's also just that me knowing like which ones are gonna come and when they're gonna come is what makes it really funny. Because it's like I can watch through it and I can be like, oh, this is the part where he says the dinosaurs died because of the Ice Age. And it's like, that's just dumb, but I love it.
Yeah, I gotta side with Sean. I mean, I love when shit's just, like, over the top and ridiculous, and, like, this movie just comes out swinging with being over the top. Like, right from the get-go, like, he freezes this museum and has his henchmen skating around with hockey sticks. Like, it's so, like, on the nose with, like, how it presents itself. Like, oh, it's an ice villain, so he's gonna, like, his henchmen are hockey players, and he incorrectly says that the Ice Age killed the dinosaurs. Like, that one I really love. That one will always have a special place in my heart because it's just so absurdly and, like, common knowledge that that's not true. The Ice Age did not kill the dinosaurs. And it's just so ridiculous to me, and it's so funny.
I think it's funny that, and I'm gonna side with Jason and Sean here, not to like gang up on Matt, because everything that Matt said is true, I guess, but how different people can see the same stuff differently, because like everything that Matt complained about to me is the ultimate strength of the movie. I get a kick out of not only the hockey themed gang, but also like subsequently you see a bunch of other themed gangs throughout the movie. I love all the ice puns, not just Freeze's ice puns, but also like the one-liners from like Batman falling, crashing through the window and just the, hey Freeze, I'm Batman. And him sliding down the dinosaur tail and the pop out ice skates. I think the movie does such a strong job at hitting its tone right away that you know exactly what you're in for. There's never a second where you're like, here's the thing. For some movies, it can take a little bit before you realize, like, I'm in or I'm out. At the very least, this movie, there's no way you don't know. From the jump, if you're going to be with this movie, you're going to be with it. If you're not, you're not. Because it's exactly what it says it is throughout. And that's just 1966 Batman with a high budget, as I believe Sean said. And I also want to, like, build on Sean's statement about I think it being better when you see the things coming. Because I do actually think, as this is a movie I've seen, like, probably an embarrassing number of times at this point, it does get better, I think. Like, when you're sitting there waiting for the Iceman cometh and what killed the dinosaurs, the Ice Age. Like, I was watching this movie alone in my apartment, and I felt compelled to, like, stand up, whoop, and clap. Like, it's just, I didn't because I had some self-control, but it's almost the way, this is a weird analogy, but if you'll go with me, this movie reminds me of the Nicole Kidman AMC ad. I think I totally understand it not being the vibe the first time you see it, because you're like, what the fuck is this? This isn't what I was expecting out of a Batman movie, even if you know the rep of this movie, being like, what is this? But I think the more you see it, the more it becomes, you're like, you know what? No, this is exactly what it's trying to be, and that's admirable. And the same, and it's like, to me, like, well, I know obviously I liked this movie from the jump because I watched it as a kid. The Nicole Kidman ad is something that I thought was so stupid, and now I fucking look forward to it every time I go to the movies.
So what you're saying is that this movie is Stockholm Syndrome.
No, but I mean, like I said, I enjoyed this movie. It's the first time I saw it when I was a kid, too. I just feel like it's the type of thing that builds on you as you can kind of like, when your brain adjusts the second time and the third time you see it, of like, this is what I'm getting into, and you just kind of have to, I mean, now it sounds like I'm describing Stockholm Syndrome again, but like, you just have to learn to enjoy it.
No, I know what you mean, but I always loved this movie. But I get what you're saying, that like it's definitely jarring, especially like if you're coming off of seeing the Burton Batmans or even the Christopher Nolan Batmans, and then you go to this and it's like just completely out of left field.
Oh, I know. It's
goofy and ridiculous.
It's such a weird tonal shift to see how this went from like the first Batman to like, this is how they've continued it. And like, just to see, it's just such a strange thing, because looking back at it, you can see like the tonal shift from where Tim Burton jumps off and Joel Schumacher comes on.
Right.
And it's just really goddamn weird.
Yeah, and I really respect how like you said, like, it sets the tone immediately. Like it like immediately you know what time it is when you see this. Like it doesn't waste any time being wacky as shit, and I respect that.
They surf Mr. Freeze's wings, and they surf in the air on pieces of a rocket.
Oh my god, there are so many things in here that I forgot that from the beginning, where he surfs down the building. Robin surfing down the building was so beautiful.
There's so many things that happen in this movie that you almost forget about some of them. Like, there's just so many weird like gags and one-liners that it's like, by the end of it you're like, oh yeah, that shit happened in the beginning, I forgot about that.
So continuing on, at Wayne Enterprises lab in Brazil, botanist Dr. Pamela Isley is working under the deranged Dr. Jason Woodrue. Kind of side note, I totally didn't realize in previous watches that Jonathan Glover's character in this is Dr. Woodrue, or the Floronic Man from the comics. Which is just, I don't know, I think it's a little fun that he's like an actual character and villain, not just like a random doctor man. But anyway, he's turned his research on plants into the super soldier drug Venom after witnessing Woodrue use the formula to turn serial killer Antonio Diego into the hulkling Bane. She threatens to expose Woodrue's experiments. Woodrue attempts to kill her by overturning a shelf of various toxins. Instead, Isley is mutated by the toxins into poison ivy. Ivy kills Woodrue, destroys the lab, and escapes to Gotham City with Bane, concocting a plan to use Wayne's money to support her research. Meanwhile, Alfred Pennyworth's niece, Barbara Wilson, makes a surprise visit and is invited by Bruce to stay at Wayne Manor until she goes back to school.
I think this... Oh, what? Sorry. I was going to say, I think this...
No, go ahead.
I think this is a good, like, stopping point, because this is where I have where I have one of my few issues with the movie. For something that's so jokey and so lighthearted as it is, I think its biggest issue is that, like, it has too many things going on and too many characters to introduce and too many, like, it's just too much at times, especially when it's like you have to introduce all of these villains, and it really, I think it's like the biggest issue with the movie is just that, like, it didn't need as many people as it has in it, and it's just kind of, it's one of those things where I'm like, it just feels very strange, like they had to meet a quota. And I know this is where I'm gonna get to the word I learned, toyetic, because a lot of the stuff in here and a lot of the decision making in the background was more with they had in the, I know specifically from when I was doing research on the movie, was that, like, yeah, they have back when they were originally going through production of the film, whenever they were making big decisions, they always had toy makers in the writer's room so that they could, you know, understand what's good from a perspective of merchandising, what would be the better choice. And I can tell that adding as many characters as they did was probably a fairly toyetic choice.
Also as many costumes as they did.
Yeah, also as many costumes as they could fit in, and also as many, like, vehicles and other things that they could put in. But it's definitely, like, fairly obvious that it's definitely at the detriment of the film. Not like this film is like highbrow art, but like it's definitely one of its biggest downfalls is that it just has too much going on with so many characters being introduced and having to, you know, fit within this plot that's already fairly overstuffed as it is.
I didn't really have that issue, to be honest. Mostly because, like, with like the introduction of Bane is like barely a character in this. So they just got his introduction out of the way, and that was really all the characterization he got. And then I feel like it mostly just focuses on Ivy, and just Bane was just like some kind of side story in the end. So I didn't really have that problem.
I think that is the problem, because if you don't mind me cutting in briefly, like I was gonna say as a whole, I don't have a huge issue with that, except for like Bruce's girlfriend in this is a non-character. There's some side characters that are like meh. Batgirl's a little bit unnecessary, but I don't have a huge issue with it. But to me, where it really suffers, I like the balance between Freeze and Ivy, but Bane is like this super genius character that can like take Batman one-on-one, and instead he just walks around in this going bomb. And to me, Bane is actually where it shows the issue, because you took a character and reduced him to just being an action figure. Being a toy.
Don't you dare insult Bane's intelligence. Don't you know? He knows that he stands out. So guess you know what he does? He wears a coat and a hat to make sure he doesn't stand out from the crowd. Now that's a fucking genius move right there.
I love that coat and hat on him. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, meanwhile, he still has fucking, like, pipes hanging out of his head. Fucking tubes of venom sticking into the back of his head. But he's like, no, I'm undercover.
You know how Bane's designed as? A video game boss. Because his weakness is the brightest part of his body. So it just screams, attack me, please. Except for Bane dies when you pull out the pipe in one try and not 3 tries. My God, what horrible game boss design.
Yeah, on the topic of Bane, while we're talking about it, I do like Bane's costume. I think there's a lot of negative things you can say about this iteration of Bane, beginning with the butchering of his character in general, and then also including the whitewashing of Bane. His name in the movie is Antonio Diego, which is a Latino name, but he's played by 2 different white actors. In general, there's an issue with whitewashing of Bane in media. Obviously, Nolan did it as well. The Nolan movies have a lot of issues with whitewashing characters in general, but I don't really want to get into that. But to me, Bane is kind of spoilers for my weak point, but is the weak point due to all of these issues, though I like his costume, so there's that. Alright, so Wayne Enterprises presents a new telescope from Gotham Observatory at a press conference, which is interrupted by Isley. She proposes a project that could help the environment, but Bruce declines her offer because he thinks it would kill millions of people. Batman and Robin decide to lure Freeze out using the Wayne family diamonds and present them at the Wayne Enterprise charity event. Ivy attends the event and decides to use her abilities to seduce Batman and Robin. Freeze crashes the party but is defeated and detained in Arkham Asylum. Ivy takes an interest in Freeze and frees him from Arkham. Dick discovers that Barbara has been participating in drag races to raise money for Alfred, who's dying of McGregor syndrome, the same disease that Victor Freeze's wife has, a fact that he's kept secret from Bruce and Dick. Okay. So there's a lot to discuss here. I think we need to talk about Barbara's role in the movie, about the Alfred dying arc. And then in general, we haven't really talked, we've talked about Freeze, we've talked about Bane, but we still need to discuss Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy as well.
That's something to discuss, but I wanted to first talk about how when Mr. Freeze is in Arkham Asylum and he first says, "Allow me to break the ice."
Fuck you, Sean.
That, I think, is more important to talk about than Poison Ivy. Wouldn't you agree?
All right, moving on to Poison Ivy. So basically, she goes into her boss's office and she discovers that her boss is using her research to basically, what was it? It's basically like corrupting her research for like military use, I'm pretty sure. And so she got all fussy, and then the boss says, "Oh, I guess you need to die," and pushes her over a table, which it doesn't seem lethal. But then he pushes a bunch of chemicals on her. I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. But instead of killing her, she turns into a sexy plant girl, and porn music continuously plays when she's on screen.
Matt, you forgot the best part of that was when it's not that evil government. It's the anti-United Nations.
Oh yeah,
that he's trying to sell the Venom to.
That part was good. I like that part,
which was hilarious.
I gotta say,
Oh my God.
I disagree with Sean that Mr. Freeze one-liner was more important than Poison Ivy. I think Poison Ivy's the most important thing to talk about from this movie. And
Jason just
in
likes
general-
it because she's Uma Thurman's just wearing a skin tight suit.
Well, what's
here's
wrong
what
with
I'll say
that?
about that? Every single outfit she has on is fucking incredible. The hairstyle, incredible. It's all very drag queen inspired in general, because the whole movie is very camp in a way that only an out gay man like Joel Schumacher can accomplish while directing a Batman movie. Tying more into the conversation we've already had today and in the previous episode about this movie kind of bringing back the fact that Batman isn't just grimdark, and this side of him is an equally important part of the legacy of the character. But it really, to me, flourishes in Uma Thurman's Ivy most of all, because of the various outfits and hair and makeup and everything, and how over the top it all is. And then coinciding with Uma Thurman's performance, which is on the perfect wavelength, I think she absolutely crushes it as Ivy.
I feel like she was I know this sounds weird because it's definitely understood that everybody kind of got what movie they were in, but like I know that like afterwards, after this movie came out, George Clooney very much was like, no, I was not a part of this movie, I hated it with a passion. But she was the only person who came out after like it was done and was like, I had a fantastic time doing it.
And that's a shame, because I also think Schwarzenegger is perfect for this version of Freeze. Obviously, I wouldn't want him playing the more like Batman the Animated Series or esque style of Mr. Freeze, but for this movie's going for, I think he also crushes it. Though I do believe he mostly has talked about the suit being hell to like act in.
Oh yeah, I think it was like it took like 6 hours for them to put it on. And, like, on top of that, parts of his suit were, like... His suit itself was, like, $1.5 million. And then, like, on top of that, he, like, had to wear a bald cap, all this makeup, and it was terrible. But then also, like, a lot of the design and functionality of the suit was, like... Or some parts of it, I should say, were not with, like... I should say with functionality in mind, because it was designed to be, like, a toy. And some parts of Freeze, like his gun, were very heavily meant to be, were designed not by the actual production designers, but by the people making the toys for the characters in the movie.
So he's basically a walking transformer.
Basically.
Okay. Oh wait.
I just need to say
before
that
we get
first
to
of
what
all,
Jason's gonna say, though, I do need to say one thing. And we did skip this one great part, and it's a scene of Mr. Freeze's origin story. So basically, Batman brings up a bunch of videos saying, explaining Mr. Freeze's backstory and how he became Mr. Freeze. And the entire time, Mr. Freeze is just grunting, and it's just Arnold grunts. And so my favorite part was when he was falling into the vat of, like, I guess frozen fluids that turned him to Mr. Freeze. He goes, and then he just comes out a frozen corpse, and he just continuously makes more Schwarzenegger grunts. And that's what I really love about this film.
I just wanted to say that Poison Ivy is serving looks the whole movie. Proceed.
Also want to discuss Batgirl in this and her role in the movie, because I do think this is one of the things. While in general I like the end result of this movie personally, I do not like all the things that Sean has discussed about it being very toy driven, and I do think her inclusion is very, we need another hero. Like, we've sold enough Batman and Robin toys from previous movies. Who can we do? Who can we use to sell more toys? And while this is sadly still the only cinematic incarnation of Batgirl we've gotten, it's sorry for the use of the phrase, Matt, because I know you hate it, but it's an OC Batgirl. They don't use Barbara Gordon. They don't use Stephanie Brown. I think that's a weird decision. The whole her being Alfred's niece, and like combining her with the actual Alfred's niece character from the comics with, I guess, some of Barbara Gordon given the name, I'm just not into it. And in general, I just think like I don't see her having much of an arc in the movie. She kind of comes in and leaves the same person, and I also don't think, like, she has some bonding with Dick, I guess, but I just, as a whole, I think if you removed her, it'd be largely the same, which is such a shame and such a disservice to the Batgirl character, even if it's not, like I said, Babs or Stephanie Brown.
Yeah, I kind of also
that's
agree.
That's an instance of, too many things going on.
Yeah, I also agree. She doesn't really add much of anything to the movie for being there, and just kind of is there, and it's like, okay, this is fine, I guess. But like them kind of like, again, making her like a weird OC kind of character and not really using her character all that much. And then also like there's just some weird writing with her that I really don't like, that makes her kind of like a weird kind of character where she's just there to solve certain things and that's it. But then on top of that, and this is me jumping ahead a little bit, the only suits I did not like in the movie were the last three at the end of her, Robin, and Batman all together, where they're all wearing matching suits that are black and gray, and it is the worst thing because I cannot tell the difference between any of them. Aside from the cowls and things, but like they all just have no unique personality at the end, and that was the weirdest part to me of all three of their characters.
With all due respect, you're completely fucking wrong. And I hate that you said that to me, and those are the best part. They look like a boy band, and it's fantastic.
I'm gonna side with Sean. I actually had a note written down that as a whole, I love all the vehicles. I love all of the Frieza suit, Bane's suit, all of Ivy's costumes. I like most of the Batman, Robin, Batgirl costumes, though I think Batgirl, again, kind of gets the short end of the stick in terms of design, it just kind of being the least interesting. I've gone on record about how I've kind of come around on the cod pieces and bat nipples and ass plates, and I just don't think those is particularly there's a scene where Batgirl she mostly just has the domino mask, but at one point when she's like riding a vehicle, she has a cowl on, and it is so bad. Hers is the only suit, particularly her finale suit, that I just didn't fuck with.
I am so happy that you guys agree with me that Batgirl is like the worst fucking part of this entire movie, because I did not like her one bit. Like, it's not.
She's actually not my worst part.
Well, it's my worst part, because everything about her I don't like. She's just like some like OC biker girl. She's acted horribly, which is nothing against the actress. I'm sure she's good in other stuff, but she was so wooden here. And so I did not like her at all. And I am 100% sure she is supposed to be British, because they kept talking about how she's visiting them from London. And she talks about how she's from, she got kicked out of Oxford. And yet she speaks with an American accent. So she's 100% supposed to be English.
Matt, do you know that people can move to England?
Yes, I am aware.
There are American people. Like,
I would, mid pod recommendation. The book Educated is about a woman from Wyoming who got away from her extremist parents that didn't let her go to public school and ended up getting her doctorate from Oxford. Sorry, not Wyoming, Utah. Guess what? She doesn't have a British accent. She still went to school in Utah and England.
The lead singer of the band As It Is was born in Minnesota and lived in England since he was 5 and has an American accent, Matt.
Also, I gotta be honest, even if she is supposed to be British, like, I'd rather, and I don't know if this is the case, but like, if Alicia Silverstone just couldn't do a good accent, I'd rather them just drop the accent than have her do a shitty accent all movie.
Oh, that's a good point.
He was.
I mostly just disagree. I just don't.
He was so passionate, and he said, "Oh yeah, good point."
It's just not once have I ever watched this movie and been like, "Why the fuck does she have an American accent?" Like, there's just so, and it's funny because I think there's so many larger issues with how Barbara / Batgirl is written in the movie, and Matt's like hung up on her going to Oxford, but not. And Matt may be right. She does come from Alfred's family, but you don't know. It's not really established. I just think it's very funny that of all the things he could say, Matt is like, why the fuck does she not have an accent?
I will agree though that I think like she's just like a poorly written character in this movie. Like, Batgirl is a fine character. Like, she's a good character in her own right, but in this movie they just like don't really give her much. They just kind of throw her in to have like that family attachment to Alfred, and like you guys have said, to sell toys. And there's not really a lot of depth to her character, which is just kind of
She's basically a power fantasy character. She has no personality, but she solves a lot. She just exists to solve problems. And then I hated her costume because her tits look like pitch tents, and I just it was awful to look at. And then like it's just the asses of like not only just her costume but everyone's costume so tight. It's just, I'm not sure if I was looking into like a superhero suit or like a dominatrix outfit.
I mean, yeah, they do look like fetish wear, but that's usually the case for Batman, to be honest. Okay, so Batman, Robin, and the police arrive at Freeze's lair in response to his escape, discovering Nora preserved in a cryogenic chamber, and that Freeze has developed a cure for the early stages of McGregor syndrome. Freeze, Ivy, and Bane secretly arrive to recover Freeze's diamonds and Nora. Wanting Freeze for herself, Ivy unplugs Nora's chamber, steals the diamonds, and seduces Robin, escalating tensions between him and Batman. At Ivy's hideout, Ivy convinces Freeze that Batman has killed Nora. Freeze swears to freeze all of humanity in revenge, and with Ivy planning to repopulate the Earth using her mutant plants afterward. Freeze and Commissioner Gordon... I can't read. Freeze and Bane commandeer Gotham Observatory and convert the new telescope into a giant freeze ray, while Ivy uses the bat signal to contact Robin. Robin attempts to go after Ivy alone, but Batman convinces him not to fall for Ivy's seduction. Barbara discovers the Batcave, where an AI version of Alfred reveals he has made Barbara her own suit. Barbara dons the suit and becomes Batgirl, arriving at Ivy's lair in time to help Batman and Robin subdue her. I also want to discuss now, because we didn't really get to it yet, the Alfred having McGregor's syndrome subplot, because I think there's a couple ways you could go with it. But before I say either, I just want to hear what your guys' impressions are.
I liked it. It basically gives us some insight into the Bruce Wayne character and into the relationship of Alfred and Bruce Wayne. It could have been executed better, especially with the flashbacks. There's one case where Bruce was having a flashback while staring out the window, and for some reason the flashback is taking place outside of the window and not just in general. So, but other than that, nothing too much to complain about. I liked it.
Sean and Jason?
I liked it as well. I think it's just it's not it would have been fine if it wasn't there, but I think it's a nice addition to it. It's not necessary, but I think it does add to the plot in a fine way.
Yeah, I also kind of liked it because it was it provides a motivator for the situation of Bruce not wanting to have much of a family outside of Alfred, so knowing that Alfred is going to be gone and requiring a family afterwards was kind of it was a nice little subplot that does sort of feed into other things rather than it just being Alfred is dying.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's added motivation for Bruce within the story and within the plot of the rest of the movie. So I think it adds something nice, whether or not it's necessary, but it's a positive thing, I'd say, to the greater story.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty positive on it. I've seen people say on the opposite side that it's melodramatic and kind of is something that is the only thing that really breaks from the camp tone because it's so serious. But to me, it works well enough. I think it has this really weirdly perfect balance of tying, like you guys said, tying the story together, and then jumping to the end, it being a bit of a redemption for Freeze, who's, in my opinion, redeemable type of bad guy, or at least something that you can sympathize, empathize, whatever with. I think it ties it together well. I think it's one of those instances, even amongst, I have seen a lot of people who hate the movie say it is good because it's the only time, Michael Gow does a great job in those scenes, and it's the only time Clooney, who's a great actor, gets to be a dramatic actor in the movie, because on paper, Clooney could be a great serious Batman as well if they wanted to go that way, I think. Just given his acting chops and that he was known as, the unattainable bachelor for the longest time. But anyway, I think in general, in a weird way, it ties the movie together. and provides a lot of humanity while not necessarily creating the inconsistent tone that I often felt was present in Batman Forever, where it couldn't decide if it wanted to be goofy fully or if it wanted to be a serious movie. It didn't create that issue here for me. It worked, and it's some of the only true, like, and I say this as someone who likes the movie, it's some of the only true, like, you know, capital A acting you see in it.
No, yeah, that is true. I mean, like, I think one of the things I do, despite that whole situation, I think one of the things that I do like about this movie as opposed to the other Batman movies is, at the very least, this one knows what it's trying to do tonally and just goes for it. And even at the times when it, like, tries to be a little more serious, it doesn't feel like it ever loses its goofiness, I should say.
I don't know. I don't know why people like have so much.
Yeah, I don't think that it feels out of place. It just feels like a supplementary thing in my eyes. Like, it doesn't feel like a random B plot that doesn't make any sense within the context. It's just like, you know, it's a goofy movie, but there's still, at the end of the day, human characters with emotions and attachments and so forth.
No, Jason, you misunderstand. This is Batman and Robin, not a goofy movie.
I mean, part of what I was going to say was agreeing with Jason and Matt, in particular, Matt talking about it showing you that family aspect. I do think the movie does a pretty good job at showing why Alfred is family to them and not just the butler. And even if there's some weirdly placed flashbacks, which is true, and Jason talking about it humanizing them, I do think it does a good job at that. In general, this movie, I think there's a surprising amount of balance shown between Bruce's life as Batman and Bruce's life as Bruce Wayne, which, while it kind of, unfortunately, a lot of that development happens off screen, it is one of the few ways, the way both Kilmer in the last one and Clooney in this talk about trying to find that balance is one of the things that actually does carry over from the Burton movies, in terms of those movies are very much about how obsessive he is and locked into being this weirdo, and these movies seem to be more about him moving away from that and getting to be Bruce. Unfortunately, like I said, I think a lot of development's kind of off screen in between movies, but it is something that's a bit of a through line that I picked up on this time that I think is a little interesting, and part of that is dealing with the family dynamic of these people have lives. He cares about Alfred. Alfred gets sick. They're humans.
Well, that's why I don't get what people having a problem with, like, this somewhat serious situation of, you know, Alfred dying, because it's mostly largely separated from the Batman stuff. And what I mean by that is that the goofy over-the-top shit happens when Bruce puts on the suit, but as soon as he becomes Bruce, it's mostly straightforward. I don't think nothing too goofy happens when he is Bruce. It only really happens when he is Batman.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
I mean, I just think, like, you know, if you're making, like, I'm not a fan of when things are, like, purely one thing, and I think it's good that, like, there is some kind of emotional subplot going on, even if this movie is inherently a weird, silly movie. Like, I think it's good to have that as a you know, as the other side to it. I don't like when things are completely serious. I don't like when things are completely goofy. Like, I think if you're making some kind of story, like, there are silly parts of life and there are serious parts of life, and I think things should have both in some sense.
Oh, one thing before we continue, I would like to say that we have not talked about the horny fights between Batman and Robin yet, and I would very much like to get into that.
Please let loose. What are your thoughts?
So my thought is that even though I think it's kind of dumb, as in the same spirit as Adam West, horniness is very funny, especially when Batman is involved.
I agree. I thought you were going to keep going, but I think it's a blast.
I mean, I could name specific examples, but, like, I guess the main thing is just, like, how Robin just, like, emulates horny boy energy throughout the entire film until the end. And then, like, another thing was they were having, like, some kind of jungle party to auction off diamonds for charity.
Actually auctioning off the women or dates with the women as well.
Oh, okay, never mind. Oh, even worse.
Even worse.
Okay,
It was both things.
Poison Ivy's basically trying to infiltrate this party. I forget the reason why, but the way she reveals herself is dressing up as a gorilla covered in cotton candy, and then taking off one piece of clothing at a time to reveal wow, sexy Poison Ivy. I don't know. My personal opinion, I don't find Uma Thurman that attractive, but that's just me. But
you're kicked off the podcast.
The audience, and then oh my god, do Bruce and Dick really go after her?
Yeah, that's kind of a lot of the rest of the movie is them needing to get over the fact that, which I mean is one of her powers, is that she can control men with pheromones.
But the thing is
not
just
to
like,
mention.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is about Bruce is that he realizes he's under control, but Robin is too hot and bothered to notice until the very end.
Hot and bothered.
Too hot and bothered.
I have two thoughts. One, I do think it is inherently funny to like see someone who's typically thought of as like dark and brooding and serious be like overly horny. Also, I do want to bring up the fact that in that scene that Matt's talking about where they're bidding on dates with women, the multiple men who outbid each other for different women.
Just dumb rich people, man. That's still something rich people would do, though.
Oh, yeah, that whole thing was
such
weird.
a dick measuring contest.
Right, it's a dick swinging contest, but about different things. It's so funny.
You know what I forgot to mention from before was that how in the beginning when we first see like Poison Ivy come to Bruce while he's Bruce and like is telling him like, hey, here's a way to stop, polluting the planet and stuff, and be environmentally conscientious, and then it's like none of the things she's saying to do are terrible. And then you see him be like, well, we need diesel, and it's like people will die, and it's like you look back at that now and the only thing I think of is like, oh yeah, but if you let that continue, that's how you kill more people.
Yeah, it is funny how like none of her ideas are that far-fetched or crazy. None of it's bad. But he's like, nah, fam. Drill, baby, drill.
Also, there's one more thing I'd like to point out, and it's the use of glitter of our two main villains. So Uma Thurman has like glitter on her eyelids. I think that's what some people use, but like the way they show that I don't know, that Mr. Freeze is covered in frost or something like that is to make his skin very glittery or shiny. And I swear they use glitter on occasions, but then like when he's out of the suit or something, it's just like a standard gloss, which looks very uncomfortable to wear. And I'm going to take a short tangent to basically say shout out to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is very much like a commitment to his craft. I remember during like the behind the scenes of the first Terminator movie that there was a scene where there was smoke coming off of his shoulders, and I believe that in order to get that effect, they had to pour acid on his shoulders to get that effect, and he just did it without complaint.
I'm gonna wrap up the plot now so we can start getting to concluding thoughts. But Freeze begins to encase Gotham in ice, and Batman, Robin, and Batgirl head to the Gotham Observatory to stop him. Batman defeats Freeze in combat, while Batgirl and Robin incapacitate Bane and thaw the city. Freeze accuses Batman of killing Nora, only to be shown a recording of Ivy admitting to the crime. Batman reveals that Nora is still alive and offers Freeze the chance to continue his research on McGregor syndrome in exchange for his cure. Freeze accepts and returns to Arkham, where he is imprisoned in the same cell as Ivy, vowing to make her life miserable for her actions against Nora. Alfred receives the cure, and Bruce and Dick agree to let Barbara join them in fighting crime. And you get what to me is the reason that Batgirl's presence in this movie is worth it, despite the disservice to the character in general, is they rip the last shot from Batman Forever, which is a really cool last shot, in my opinion, of Batman and Robin running away from the signal, and now it's that same shot, but with her at it, and it goes pretty hard. But anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on the finale, the climax and conclusion of the movie before we get into our overall thoughts?
The suits are ugly.
Anything other than that, I think that's established.
The vehicles are pretty cool, and I'm going to say right now, I didn't mention it before, but I do like some of the set designs and the overall effects of this movie. It's obvious that a lot of movie was sunk into this film, and some of the effects still look good to this day, and a lot of the set designs are pretty grand, and so they're pretty interesting to look at. Like, even though like there'll be like some scenes I don't enjoy watching, the setting that they're in is still pretty interesting. Like, for example, like one example perfectly is that the bidding lady dating thing that they did. It took place in like a jungle party with like a bunch of people swinging on vines and dancing on top of rocks. It's a very interesting setting, and it's fun to watch. All right, on to Sean.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, it's one of the things I agree with is that, like, a lot of the things one of the things that we did not talk about, like Matt said, was the settings, and a lot of them look like really great. All the sets look like really neat and kind of fantastic at times, because like you still have like those big, one of the things that I like that they still did for this one was that they have the big massive statues that are like either holding a globe or like just have their hands out or things like that, where they're like these very big oppressive statues that they still have in these movies, which I just think is a neat little detail to have in some of the sets. But like, yeah, I still love the ending shot of them all running together, because despite not liking like Batgirl in this, I still think that like ending shot is fantastic. And I think the only part of the ending that I don't think I liked was like Freeze going back to get revenge on Poison Ivy, because they make it feel like Freeze has kind of like a turnaround almost, like he's partially has some way of redeeming himself in some way, shape, or form, and I don't think him getting revenge is something I expected him to want, especially after him being like, or after Batman being like, hey, I'm gonna let you continue to do your research in Arkham so that you can cure your wife, and like seemingly lending him a hand and being like kind to him and showing him that like, hey, you can, not be bad. But I don't know, that part felt kind of weird to me. I get it, don't get me wrong, like I get him wanting revenge on Poison Ivy for attempting to kill his wife, but it still felt weird at the end and kind of out of place for me.
Yeah,
it's
I agree with
stranger
Sean.
that he has his suit in
That
Arkham.
too. I mean, like, I know he needs I know he does, he needs the suit to survive in certain situations, but like if they put him in the room that he had in the beginning where he has a cold spot, he doesn't need the suit.
Yeah, it is strange.
I kind of saw it as, one, again, it didn't bother me just because I think you get the cool shot of him, like, you do the whole reveal of him coming out with the light up suit, and being Ivy's cellmate. But also, I think, I don't know, I just kind of read it as like because he ultimately surrenders and is agreeing to help Bruce/Batman, he's probably going to get some preferential treatment. He seems pretty reformed, for lack of a better word. So they, I just kind of see it as like, put him in the suit so he has more mobility, and you can probably just disarm the suit. Like he doesn't have the freeze gun. I just figured it, I saw it as like just like a more humane way to treat him. Though I do really like, one of the things we didn't say was I do really like the way Arkham looks in these movies, and in particular his cell with the little cold cone that he can't leave is just kind of little world building. But to also mildly disagree, I really loved the finale, and I like the final set piece at the observatory. I like that a lot. I think it looks cool, and I do agree that all the sets look good, but I'm also a little bit let down and disappointed by them, just because I think in comparison to both the previous Schumacher film and the two Burton movies, you get to see less of Gotham, which to me is such a highlight, and when you see it, it does look great. But I think there's a lot more time spent just at Wayne Manor in this than previous ones, and it makes for just, while those sets look good, just slightly less interesting compared to what came before.
I don't know if it's just me, but this one I felt like I saw Gotham more than I did in the last one. But I don't know. I may be misremembering things, but I felt like I saw more of Gotham in this one than compared to Batman Forever.
Really? I don't know. I just felt like I saw them... maybe it's just because it hits harder seeing the statues in Batman Forever, since it's like obviously still inspired by the Burton movies, but a slightly different look. But for me, it was just like not quite as like awe-inspiring, but just different strokes for different folks.
I really liked Gotham in this one. I agree with Sean. I thought Gotham looked like, I loved the statues. I loved the observatory.
I loved how it looked. I just wanted to see more of it.
No, I know what you mean, but I felt like I loved what we saw of it, and I feel like I wasn't. I didn't like want more. I thought it was perfectly fine. Like I feel like we saw quite a bit of it, and I quite enjoyed it.
I guess I could kind of understand Jake's perspective, because in the previous movies, the city of Gotham itself was very prominent and basically a character of itself that's very important to the movie and its tone. And it's not that important in this one. Like, you don't really get to see it that often. And when you do get to see it that often, they're mainly being used as set pieces and not like as like an atmospheric shot to show that this place is indeed like a functioning city or anything like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree that we obviously, since the first one, we've gotten less of Gotham, and it's definitely not as much of Gotham as the first one. But I mean, compared to just what I was talking about, comparison was just Batman Forever to this one, which is why I was like, I think Batman Forever had less Gotham than this one, but I still think Gotham and these are still worse than the first Batman.
Fair. Sorry, go Jace.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded seeing more of Gotham. I just don't feel like I feel like we saw enough of it to like that I didn't need more. But I wouldn't have complained if we saw more of it, to me.
I also, in regards to the conclusion, was a big fan of how things wrapped up with Freeze. I thought it made a lot of sense for the character and was a good conclusion to his arc for him to kind of have the moment of realization that what he's doing is not the way to go about it. It wouldn't be looked on fondly by Nora. To get that slight moment of, I don't know if redemption's the right word, and to help to voluntarily help unthaw the city and save Alfred. And ultimately, I think, to me, the highlight is Bruce/Batman looking at him and addressing him with humanity and respect. And he doesn't call him, he looks at him and he refers to him as Doctor, and he sees him as Dr. Victor Freeze, a man who's grieving for his wife, and not just Mr. Freeze over the top villain. And I just really like that. I thought that was really, to me, that's like quintessential Batman and just quintessential superhero in general. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like, I really like Clooney in this movie. I know he himself even talks negatively about the experience or about the film. But for me, like I said, it's just for what he's doing what they're going for, he's doing, right? It's just, it's not this like incredible performance the way you think of like Pattinson or Bale or even Affleck, or Keaton, but I think he's hitting the right marks, and there's a couple of nice moments he's really good at, and he's just really charming for the rest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely like Clooney as Batman. I think he is a good fit for what they're going for.
To kind of go into our overall concluding thoughts, favorite, least favorite, and would you recommend? I'll just go right off the bat. My least favorite thing, obviously we talked about Batgirl and Bane a lot. To me, Bane is worse because, A, whitewashing, not a good look. Especially having white actors play a character that's still supposed to be. It's just messy. And as a whole, that's a butchering of just such a great character. And I think a lot of it would be solved if you just make him Solomon Grundy. Everything's solved if he's Solomon Grundy. It fits. Then all of a sudden he becomes kind of weirdly adorable. Just make him Solomon Grundy. My favorite thing is the overall tone. It's so consistent. It hits you in the face. If you don't like it, then you're going to see it as relentless, but I think it's a blast. I think it comes down to all the little details, like we didn't talk about it. We talked about the scene, but we did not talk about the Bat credit card, which is fucking incredible. I think it's hilarious. I think it is perfect. And then even off of that, just all the little silly Bat gadgets are great. Things like Mr. Freeze making all of his hockey-themed henchmen sing the Snowmeister song, and they eat dinner by like licking on frozen TV dinners, and that's their food. It's just all of it is so that, and I think it's such a blast.
I forgot.
I gotta be honest.
The Batman,
Bat credit card.
Yeah, the Bat credit card, because I didn't notice this until now, but they have the date on it. The place where the date would be on the Bat credit card says Forever.
Yeah, it says Batman Forever on it. I noticed that too.
I was like, oh,
that's pretty cool.
That's fucking hilarious.
This was I also realized that for the first time watching it this time, Sean.
Never leave home without it.
Yeah, never.
But yeah, so I'm 100% Schumacher-pilled. I think this movie is genuinely great at what it's trying to do. I think it's a very good, very enjoyable movie. I 100% recommend it. And this isn't, I don't think it's so bad it's good. I don't like it ironically. I think this is very good at what it is trying to be. And that's not going to be for everyone. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But if you adjust your brain to not be like, oh, this is a follow-up to the fact that it's like smished between the Burton movies and the Nolan movies, and that this is just big budget Adam West Batman, basically, I fucking love it. So, strong recommend. Just go with an open mind and with your expectations accordingly, for it not being a grimdark Batman that you may be used to.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring, but I would definitely agree that like my least favorite is like, I'm gonna say a combination to kind of give a more generalized description of like my least favorite things, and that's gonna be like it's a toss up between like the characters, specifically Bane and Batgirl in my opinion, but Bane is definitely worse. And a combination of like I do feel like there's a little too many characters going on and just going around to the point where I feel like it was a detriment, because it leads to the situation of where you have things like Bane where it's just like he's not really Bane, he's just kind of like big grunt. And same with like Batgirl, I feel like she was brought down, her entire character was brought down to a very shortened role when I feel like it could have been a lot bigger and a lot better if they had done it right. But yeah, and then my favorite parts, again, like the tone, the goofiness. I think the one-liners are fantastic. I wish there were more of them. Oh my god, some of them are so stupid. I mean, like, hearing Arnold Schwarzenegger say chill just about every single time he walks in on a bunch of guys and is like, guys, we need to chill, and then he starts freezing people is hilarious. Even though it's so stupid, I think the actors make of it what they have and like really run with it. And tonally, the movie just keeps itself the same. There's nothing like makes me go like, oh, you really don't know what kind of movie you're in. It's like, no, everybody kind of like, maybe the actors didn't entirely know what movie they were in, considering some of them gave some very questionable opinions afterwards. But like, I feel like the people who like were a part of like making sure this film was like created, so like Joel Schumacher, the writers, the producers, everybody, I'm gonna exclude the toy people that were involved with this and the decision making, but like everything else seemed to be like in par with being like, we know what we are and we're moving ahead with that. And so like I definitely would recommend this. It's a very fun time as long as you know what you're getting into, that this is just Batman 66 with a budget, and that's what really, that's the best mindset to go in with it on, just to understand that it's a fun, goofy movie.
I'm gonna make the hot take that I don't think Bane was the worst part. I think that Batgirl was, because I think despite the fact that Bane, like Jake said, is whitewashed in this, and that's terrible in its own right, but aside from that, just talking about the context of the movie, despite the fact that he's very much not what his source material portrays him to be, and he's dumb and not the mastermind that typically Bane is, I do think that he accomplishes what they wanted from that character. And obviously, like Jake said, if it had been Solomon Grundy, it would have worked perfectly fine. But to me, it's just they wanted a dumb brute character, and they just threw Bane on there because that's a more well-known character. So I think that Batgirl's actually worse, just because she kind of is thrown in as like a more meaningful character, but then still doesn't have much character to her. Like, you introduce a relative of Alfred while Alfred's sick and dying, and you think that she's gonna have some kind of emotional impact, and she's just kind of like a flat character the whole time. So to me, that's more disappointing, and to me, that's the worst part. I think the best part, I'm between two things. One being like just the aesthetic of the whole movie. I think everything looks great. And two, specifically Uma Thurman's performance, because not only is she just gorgeous the whole movie, but she's just like, she puts on such a like campy and like hams it up, and she's so over the top with her acting in it. And she's just such a good actor in general, but in this, like, she knows what she's doing, and she does such a great job of doing it that I think she's the best part. And I absolutely would recommend this movie without a doubt. Love it. 100%.
All right, I guess it leaves me then. I'm going to be the outlier here. not because I want to, but it's just how I feel. I would not recommend this movie, not to no one, because even though there are
Matt doesn't
things,
like fun.
Well, fuck you. I don't. Well, here's the thing, right? I do enjoy camp. I greatly enjoyed the Adam West Batman, and I greatly enjoyed the last Joel Schumacher movie, Batman Forever. I actually liked that movie, but this was just took it in a whole different direction. It just seems like it not like these like catering to kids is a bad thing, but it just seems to just be like a commercial, seeing how like colorful and bulky everything was, and then like I don't know, it just seemed a lot more soulless than the previous Joel Schumacher movie. But there were good things about it, like the relationship between Bruce and Alfred, that was genuinely good, and I greatly enjoyed that part. Again, the set designs and some of the effects were also very good. I also enjoyed those as well. And really, yeah, like it was definitely a more interesting and fun experience than I was initially expecting. But overall, I still don't like this movie. Though, to be honest,
Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. I like Forever. I don't like this. This just takes it to a different level. I just can't enjoy that.
Well, on that note, I want to say thank you to our friend Alo at Vodmort, VODMORTE on Twitter for all the podcast artwork. And I'm also going to plug myself on Letterboxd, Jake Walter 98. Jason, please plug your music.
I make music. I made the intro-outro music of this podcast. It's from a song that I've been working on called Pins and Needles, which will be out eventually. Fuck you, I'm not giving a release date because I don't know. I'm
Because
working
it's not
hard.
coming out?
It's hard.
It doesn't exist.
It's hard to make music. You can follow me on Twitter at @the_UpsidesPA, on Instagram at @theupsidesPA, and all my music's on SoundCloud. Just the Upsides on SoundCloud. Also, fuck you, Matt. It does exist. I have the file on my laptop. You can listen to it if you want, bitch. It's just not mixed yet.
If you are interested in continuing to check out the podcast and keep up with what we're up to, you can follow us at illiterate_pod for both Twitter and Instagram. You can reach us at culturalliteratepod@gmail.com if you want to send us any questions, thoughts, comments, whatever. All episodes are up on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as our YouTube channel called Culture Illiterate Podcast. And next episode, this marks the end of our Batmanathon, 5 straight movies about Batman, just how it lays out with the release dates. So next episode, we'll be covering the first comic book movie, the first movie we're going to cover with a black lead, based on a relatively lesser known character. Of course, I am talking about Steel.
No.
Yes! Did you think I was going to say a different one?
No, I knew you were talking about Steel, and I'm so excited.